Jocko, you say jiu-jitsu makes you humble. Why do some jiu-jitsu instructors and many jiu-jitsu practitioners act like complete arrogant jerks?
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. That's a great question. And we haven't really talked about, I don't think we've talked about that. Now, I've talked about how some there's bad apples in the jiu-jitsu community for sure. But the way that I talk about the jiu-jitsu and the way we talk about it, like everybody that does jiu-jitsu should be some Buddha-like enlightened being at one with the universe and totally free of any ego, right? Because that's what we talk about jiu-jitsu. But like I said, I've talked about the fact that there's definitely bad people in jiu-jitsu, and that's why you need to be careful when jiu-jitsu should not be a cult. You should not be worshiping your instructor. Your instructor is a human being. There's been jiu-jitsu people that have been wrapped up in all kinds of terrible stuff, that every kind of crime you can imagine. So again, just like a person in the military, just like a SEAL, just like being in the SEAL teams doesn't make you a good person. It applies to everything else. Jiu-jitsu, just because you do jiu-jitsu, just because you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu doesn't make you a good person. Here's a quote: just because you're a priest doesn't mean you're a good person. There's plenty of malevolent people out there that wear the cloth of God but actually practice the work of Satan. So you have to apply that rule to everything, and it's definitely the same with jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu is a power. It's a position of power, right? When you're good at it, you have some power over other people, and some people are going to abuse that power. If you have the right mindset, jiu-jitsu is extremely humbling, because you realize that what you realize when you do jiu-jitsu is that you can be beat by other people. That's what you realize. And it, for the most part, as a broad generalization, if another human has been training longer than you, they can beat you. And this is especially in the beginning of jiu-jitsu, right? Once you get further along, that gap closes up. But in general, if someone's been training 6 months and you've been training 1, you're going to get beat. There's very few exceptions to that. If you've been training for a year and someone's been training for 1 month, you're going to beat that person that's been training for 1 month. That's just, that covers all kinds of weight classes and athletic ability and all that stuff. A great athlete, total stud can if you've been training for 1 month and you got someone that's been training for a year and a half, it's going to be a problem. So if you realize that when you start, that makes you humble. And if you remember that as you get better, it will keep you humble if you don't forget that. But what happens is sometimes people forget that it's jiu-jitsu that gives them the power to submit other people, and it's not their power, right? It's not their power. They believe that they are the power of jiu-jitsu. They think it's them, and so they think they're better than anyone else, and that's arrogance. That's what it is, and it's ugly. And I think really, if I was to drill down, I would say it's caused by people that are, number one, insecure, right? They're insecure, so they get this thing that they can dominate other people, and they relish it. Or, also people that are just like not that smart. Right?
Yeah.
They don't realize, they don't put 2 and 2 together, that like, oh, the reason I'm better, the reason I can choke this person is because I've been training longer than them.
Right.
That doesn't make me a better human being.
Yeah.
It just means I'm better at this one aspect of being a human being. So I would say those are some of the reasons. And if you end up at a school where people are arrogant, just don't train there. Go to a different school.
Yeah.
Unless it's like the only school option you have.
Yeah. And if it's getting in your way, I mean, because there's a difference. Let's face it, like being arrogant is kind of strong, but, being not humble in these teeny tiny little ways, you run into that all the time. Just these small ways, still within the jiu-jitsu community, though. So, this guy may always talk about how good his triangle choke is or something like this, this kind of stuff. And that's not to mention,
that's not offensive, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah, I'm not offended by that. Like, I probably say, yeah, you do have a good...
Yeah. But you know how guys will brag and, you know, be like, oh, I was kicking ass in that tournament, or I don't know, something like that. It doesn't scream humble, you know, it doesn't necessarily. So maybe like that expectation or whatever. Okay. I think you kind of got to make a concession for those sorts of things.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, this is something I talk about. It's a dichotomy of leadership. It's a dichotomy of the ego, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to go to a school where no one cares if they win or loses. You want to go to a school like where, hey, when we train here, we're training to beat each other. Like we're training to win.
Yeah. And when you win, you're happy.
There's ego on the mat for sure. My ego's on the mat. I don't like to lose. I don't like to tap. I don't, you know, it's like great.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, I love to tap because that means I'm learning. But you don't. So that's acceptable. Like that's of course. Yeah, you want to train a place where there's competitiveness in the school. Yeah. But this is totally different. This is you know, when you get people that are just arrogant jerks, then they're definitely out there.
Yep.
But most, I don't know. I don't want to say most. That's the way it should be. They haven't learned jiu-jitsu correctly.
Yeah.
That's not what jiu-jitsu is meant to be.
I think you're,
in my opinion,
100% right when you say it's like an insecure person, and not the kind like broken insecure. It's just you know, like someone who's just a little bit insecure. You know, someone comes in, like, especially if you're in like a certain type of instructor, and you're used to like everyone just listening to every word you say, and then I don't know, a student or someone comes with something different than what you said, or the opposite of what you said, or something that kind of indicates that what you said isn't 100% correct. It's like, boom, you're going to defend that little position that you've kind of grown accustomed to, you know? Yeah. Especially if you're even a little bit insecure, you can at least have those feelings. So,
and it's interesting how that this jiu-jitsu once again reflects leadership in life. If you get an instructor that gets shown a move, but it's not his move and he gets mad about it, like your respect for the instructor goes down. It doesn't go up. If you get a guy that goes, wow, that's awesome. Let me see that again. Let me learn that. Let me incorporate that in my game. That's a great thing. Thanks for showing me.
Yeah.
Your respect for that teacher goes up because you recognize that they're humble, that they're evolving, that they want to learn, that they have an open mind, which is what you want to see in your leaders and in your jiu-jitsu instructors. 100%. Boom.
Yeah. So funny. Adam Mason. A Mason.
Coach Adam.
Yeah. So I came in one time. He's teaching this move. And he teaches really good. I was like, yeah, it's a good move, you know. And he's teaching it, and when he explained what this move was, it was a move that he just got beat with in a tournament that someone else did, and obviously was really good. And to me, that
do you remember the move?
Yeah. It was like it was similar to I remember back in the day, Frank Mir got this guy named Pete, big tall guy. Pete. This is old school UFC.
Oh yeah.
Pete. Yeah. What was his last
Maniac.
Maniac.
Wasn't it the Maniac? He twisted his arm, right? It was like an Americana in an arm lock position.
Yeah, overhook, you know, from the guard. Yeah. It was kind of like that, but it was a straight arm lock.
Yeah.
And the guy's name was Philippe.
Oh, really? Wasn't it Tim Sylvia?
No. In the UFC, it was Frank Mir did it to Pete. I think his name is Pete. He was a San Diego guy, actually.
Oh, okay.
He was old school.
I thought it was Tim Sylvia.
No, Tim Sylvia's, he broke his arm in a shallow arm bar.
Oh, okay.
That you might be thinking about that, but nonetheless, when Adam got hit with it in the tournament, it was against a guy named Philippe, Gracie Barra guy. Anyway, so to me, when Adam decides to teach that move, that was like the opposite of what this arrogance is. It's not like, oh, and make a bunch of excuses and dismiss it because I'm dope, you know. And that was just a once in a lifetime situation. He was like, man, this is a legitimate move.
It worked.
Yeah, it worked on me, by the way. And that's not to mention getting over the fact that you lost in a tournament, and then now you're going to kind of revisit the whole situation by glorifying the move, kind of thing. So that's like the ultimate in humility, in my opinion.
There you go.
But it makes sense. I mean, not to say it's good or it's like an excuse or it's fine or not, or even acceptable, whatever, but it does make sense, though. Even like competitors, you know, like he said practitioners, but maybe competitors or whatever, where, you know, you have the competitive aspect of it. And so you're going to talk a high game about your jiu-jitsu, you know, that's kind of how it is or whatever. To be an arrogant jerk, though, I think that's like something that the human being brought into jiu-jitsu, you know, and then the jiu-jitsu kind of just mixed it, you know, mixed in. That's what I think. That's what it seems like anyway. But I think for the most part, when you start jiu-jitsu, it makes you more humble than you were before, 100% because of that reason.
It really should. And if it doesn't, you're wrong.
Yeah. Man, it's hard to imagine how it wouldn't, even like in an exceptional
it's situation. Because when people start to get good at it, and then they forget what it was like, that's what happens.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's what happens.
and then it comes biting you one day.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
No, you know what? But it's these guys, and here's the thing. When you've been in the game long enough, you see this super clear too, right? So let's say you get this, I don't know, this is a straw man, by the way. So you get this guy, he gets humbled, right? He starts jiu-jitsu, he gets humbled, he gets good at jiu-jitsu, good at moves, he's tapping everybody out. Now he's an arrogant jerk. Now, when these other big dogs start coming in, he avoids rolling with them.
Yeah,
and
for
he
sure.
doesn't roll with like the higher belts. He doesn't compete. Nothing like that. He only rolls with the lower belts. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, when people do that, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
So obvious. Man, I remember when I started jiu-jitsu, and this was like a year, 2 years in, I remember being like kind of apprehensive, not apprehensive, kind of scared actually. And I was working at the club where you kind of walk around and, you know, in the nightclub situation, it's you can't help but be like,
you don't know if this guy knows jiu-jitsu
exactly,
or not.
man, and worried where it's like, man, I got to
That's humbling.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And man, if there's not even a little bit of that in your head, it's like, man, something must be weird.
Because even me, I walk around like, hey, I'm pretty good at jiu-jitsu, but there may be somebody out there that's better.
Yeah.
And then what are you going to do? So be careful who you run your mouth to.
Yeah.
How's that? How about you treat people with respect? How's that?
Yeah.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
And that's the result of being humbled and humility in general. Man, think about it though. In the nightclub, like everyone's kind of sizing each other up, and it's kind of this thing that's the climate. You know, it's what it feels like. Man, I remember thinking like this skinny guy right here, especially a tall skinny guy, if you didn't know about jiu-jitsu, a tall skinny guy is a non-factor kind of thing. But now it's like, man, if you get caught in an armbar or a choke on the streets, so to speak, right, you're in big trouble.
Big trouble.
Huge trouble.
Stay humble.
Stay humble. But yes, that's the explanation. I agree with you 100%. Next question.
Next question.
Unless you want to talk about jiu-jitsu some more, cuz I could, if you want. We could. You could. I'd listen.